Hello, I'm Emma Desi, and welcome to another episode of Turning Readers into Writers. If you're brand new here, welcome, and here's what you need to know. This is a community that believes you are never too old to write your first novel. No matter what you've been up to until now, if you're ready to write your book, I'm ready to help you reach the end. I focus on helping you find the time and confidence to begin your writing journey, as well as the craft and skills you need to finish the book. Each week I interview debut authors, editors and industry experts to keep you motivated, inspired and educated on all things writing, editing and publishing. If you want to catch up, head on over to emmadesi.com where you'll find a wealth of information and tools to help you get started. Before we dive in, this week's episode is brought to you by my private Facebook community, also called Turning Readers into Writers. It's a safe space for writers from all over the world and at all stages of their writing career. In the group, you'll not only find community, but guest interviews and daily lives where I give you my thought for the day. You can suggest podcast topics and guests, and you get access to upcoming events and programs. So don't stay a lone wolf. Head to Facebook and search for Turning Readers into Writers, and I'll be there to welcome you in. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. Today's interview is with Dallas-Fort Worth-based physical therapist and health coach Alexia Harrigan. She believes that health and wellness begin with mindset. Using her 15 years of physical therapy experience in orthopaedic and women's health and pelvic floor therapy, Alexia has set out to coach mums into optimal health and unconditional self-love. Her mission is to help mums be their best for themselves so that they can be the best for their families. Today, she talks to you about how you can alleviate all those aches and pains that come from the writing life so that you can be the best writer you can be and prolong your career as well as living a healthier life. Well, hi, Alexia. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I wanted to start, perhaps if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, and because I know you have your own practice now, but how did you go from doing your training to the place you are now?
Yeah, so I've been a physical therapist for about 15 years in a multitude of settings. I'm currently working in outpatient for a corporation, and I focus on pelvic floor therapy and women's health, and I also do orthopedics. So anything from head to toe is, is pretty much what I see and treat. I also treat postpartum moms and all the things that come along with that, because there's various body changes that happen. So we work through a lot of those things. And through my own journey, postpartum and in motherhood, I've had my own kind of personal health issues and things like that. And so I really got into the women's health and recently kind of dove into doing health coaching for moms, because there's so many things that we leave unsaid. There's so many things that are just like, oh, that's common because you just had a baby. That's just life. When so many things are treatable, but we just assume that just has to be our life now. Mm-hmm. And so being able to, cough, laugh, or sneeze without leaking on yourself is kind of important, but nobody really talks about it.
Yeah, I've come across that recently, that is particularly that example that you gave. A lot of women do suffer with that. And as you say, assume that is part of just life after childbirth. Women in their 70s that have had it for, 40, 50 years, but didn't reach out for help.
Yeah. And it's really because we don't talk about it, and we just go, oh yeah, that's just what it is, but those things are treatable. And can get better with, pelvic floor therapy and various things. And so I'm just really wanting to be an advocate for moms and also, we, as moms, we lay ourselves down for every single thing. We go to the moon and back for the people that we love, but we don't take time to take care of ourselves, and sometimes we feel guilty for taking care of ourselves. Yeah. And so like in my health coaching role, I definitely am a strong proponent for self-care, because you can't love yourself. You can't love others optimally if you don't love yourself first, and so we really wanted to focus on that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a little longer than it should have done to realize that a happy mum equals a happy child. So mum's health is so important. And I think you mentioned guilt there for having self-care. And I think certainly some of the writers that I work with, there is an element of that, because being a fiction writer, a storyteller, it doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't, contribute in that way. It's quite a solitary thing, and not everybody gets it. So I know a lot of us can feel guilty before we finally take those steps towards writing. So what kind of, apart from the leaking, what other common ailments have you seen that can occur after childbirth, in case any of our listeners are experiencing something that actually is very treatable?
Yeah. So many moms will have pain with intercourse. Sometimes there is damage to the tissues during childbirth, and that may or may not require, sutures or stitches and things like that. There can be a lot of pain associated with that. And, there's been a lot of bad advice out there. It's like, oh, well, just have more sex. Like, that's not the answer. That is treatable, right? It's not the answer. That is treatable. There's also just like a lot of different joint pains, pelvis pain, knee pain, foot pain, shoulder pain, back pain. All of those things can happen because a lot of moms are not sleeping well because their babies are up. Their joints and things are still lax because of the hormones in their body. So things are trying to come back together. And so if they're not sitting with good posture, if they're not breastfeeding in an optimal way that's going to support their bodies, if their core is obviously weak after having a baby, right? So all of those things kind of play a part, and those are treatable. Some moms have diastasis where the abdominals separate and don't necessarily come back together as optimally. So that can create a whole host of issues with bloating and back pain and all kinds of things. So, and all that stuff is treatable.
Okay, so if there's anyone listening and this all sounds familiar, get in touch with your health practitioner. It's
absolutely.
So how do you help your clients that come to you after childbirth, for example? What are some of the ways in which you kind of help them get back to optimal health? Because you mentioned that you got recovery with grace. And so how do you incorporate that in?
So we incorporate not just the physical aspects of, exercise and getting back to movement. We focus on posture. We also focus on self-care because really when we look at how our bodies work, and our bodies are so amazing and everything's connected. And so when you're looking at how your diet is, how your movement is, even with how your emotions are, all those things play a part in your overall healing. So my Recovery with Grace program, it really encompasses the whole body holistically, mind, body, and spirit. How are you taking care of yourself so that you can better take care of your child? What's your diet looking like? Are you eating? Some moms they're just not eating enough, or are you eating too much of the wrong things? Our gut health, how our intestines and things like that plays a huge part in our immunity, as well as, like, you may not know, but the gut produces 70 to 90% of the serotonin in our bodies, which is that feel-good hormone.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah. So even for your writers, sometimes you get so caught up in writing that you're just kind of eating junk, right? But if you're not feeding yourself optimally, then you're not giving yourself the right elements to produce that feel-good hormone that helps your creativity.
Right.
So it's really important to feed yourself good things so that you can stimulate all those feel-good hormones so you can be more creative, so that you can be present, and so that you feel better, right? My husband's also a life coach, and we always say, like, are you depressed because your gut's messed up, or is your gut messed up because you're depressed? Right. And the answer is yes, right? Because we don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but they both feed into each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, my Recovery with Grace program really focuses on the eating, the self-care, pelvic floor health is super important. All the muscles down in your pelvis that incorporate all your sexual organs and all of that, all those things are connected neurologically to your central nervous system, to your brain. So like for people that have like pelvic floor pain or even overactive bladder, where you run into the bathroom every 5 minutes, when you freak out, that stimulates those areas to activate and even overactivate, which means you can, by managing your stress, you can decrease the amount of times you have to go to the bathroom. You can decrease your pelvic floor pain. There's like a whole host of things. So we really talk about all of those elements to have optimal health, not just immediately postpartum, but throughout life. Because as we know, stress doesn't stop coming. So we have to figure out how to manage it. Right. So there's all of those things that we really focus on and work through.
That's lovely. Yeah, I love that idea of it being holistic and the fact that it's a lifelong thing as well. And so I guess that's a really lovely opportunity for the women you work with to start putting in place some great habits and ways to move forward. Yes, you're right. The stress doesn't go away. And if anything, it then increases when the little person arrives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So if I can move on to just kind of thinking about writers, and just by the nature of our job, most of us have, even if we're active perhaps in our paid jobs, we then become very sedentary when we sit down to write, and we can be sitting for 2 or more hours at a time just in one place. So, for example, for myself, I struggle a lot with shoulder and neck pain, and I get sort of quite severe headaches, say 2 times a month, and it can knock me for 6. Can you think of any ways that I could what do you think are the most common reasons that I might be getting pain in that area? Is it to do with posture, or maybe the ergonomics of my desk, perhaps?
Yes, those are definitely 2 possible factors. Posture is very, very important. And I know a lot of times we think about, ergonomics, right? And it's kind of like one of those really fancy words for like, does everything fit right? Is basically it. And you need to make sure that, one, you have a good chair that fits you. Some people have long legs and are sitting in a short chair, that's not as deep. So then, their legs are kind of down a little bit. They're not really supported. Or you have a shorter person that's sitting in a deep chair where their feet are dangling. So all of those things can put stress on the back. And again, like I said, everything's connected. So if your feet aren't planted on the floor and you've got, your feet dangling, that's going to put an increased arch in your back, which is going to make you hunch forward, or backward, and your head's going to come forward, which is going to kind of, it's almost like a stack of dominoes that just fall. Everything's going to be a little less optimally performing. And then you're in that posture for a prolonged time. So now you're putting strain on those tissues, and they're trying to hold you up. They're trying to do the job that you're asking of them, but they're not in a position where they can optimally work. So one of the things, especially like with neck pain and shoulder pain, one, you got to take breaks, right? I always like to say no posture. There's no bad posture, right? Our bodies are made to move and go in and out of postures. We have issues when we stay in these prolonged static postures and we never come out of them, right? So that those long marathon writing sessions where we're just kind of hunched over and we're typing and our neck is forward, all that's doing is really overactivating the upper trapezius muscles, which is at the top of the shoulders, and your head is forward, so that it's putting a lot of strain. A normal head weighs anywhere from 10 to 30 pounds when it's like over the shoulders and the hips, when it's upright. But when you have your head forward and your shoulders rounded, just by virtue of physics, you have to multiply that poundage by 3 to 5 times, right? So those smaller muscles in your neck that are supposed to hold you up and be stable, that's a lot more strain on them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I usually recommend, especially with my patients that have, neck pain and upper back pain and shoulder pain, is take breaks. Right. It's okay if you're going to, if you plan on writing all day, that's fine. Use your phone, set a timer, set a timer for 45 minutes or an hour and try to at least stand up, stretch, and then sit back down and get back to writing. Okay. Even that small little bit of movement will kind of break up the monotony, allow those some more circulation to come into those tissues.
Right. Okay.
And allow you to be able to move a little bit better.
Okay. So breaks are good. And so you would recommend, say, every 45 minutes, taking a break and having a stretch?
Yes, absolutely. As far as like with your desk and things like that, what you would like is to have the monitor a little bit higher than your eye level so that your gaze can be straight on instead of like down. So being able to elevate your monitor, a lot of us use laptops now. So put it on a stack of books, or if you have those little, they have little trays now that kind of, you can stand them up on, but that way your gaze can be straight on instead of down. So that encourages you to be upright a little bit more.
Okay.
Also just moving, right? Moving your neck around. If you're like, man, I'm in the zone and I don't want to stop after 45 minutes, at least sit up straight, turn your head a few times, side to side, and just allow those muscles to stretch and move. Like getting out of those positions and then going back into it, it's not going to break your concentration that much if you take 2 minutes to care for your body so that you're not laid out for 3 or 4 days with a headache and, spasms and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I putting a timer, I think, is a good idea. Otherwise it's so easy to forget and just lose track.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you get in the zone.
Yeah.
You get in the zone. It's just like, I do the same thing. I actually just finished my book and sent it to publishing. Yeah. And so it's called Sunny with a Chance of Showers. And so I totally understand the whole writing process. It's like when you're in it, you're just in it, but you have to have those outside reminders to be like, just take a break, just take a break and be able to just move. And that will kind of help stem some of that overactivity of those muscles.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for that. So I put some questions out to some of my audience, and they've come back to me with some of the things that they are struggling with and were keen that I ask you. So one or two people actually mentioned eye strain and saying that they get quite a bit of eye strain, I'm guessing from writing directly onto a computer using the screen in some way. Is there a way of reducing that? Because I don't know if they wear glasses actually, so I don't know if there's already something going on, but is that something that they can manage in a way? Absolutely.
So I typically recommend blue light glasses because the blue light from the computers, they definitely cause a lot of eye strain. Even like with prescription glasses, you can get a coating on your glasses to kind of help with the blue light. I have that on mine as well. Or you can just, if you don't wear glasses, you can buy separate blue light glasses.
I've not heard
a lot of different studies. Yeah, there's a lot of studies coming out about it. One thing, even with using your phone, there's a lot that backlit, that light actually inhibits melatonin production in your body, which melatonin is that relaxation hormone that's naturally produced that helps you sleep. So if you're on your computer or on your phone late at night and you find it hard to go to sleep, it's probably because that blue light is inhibiting those hormones being produced in your body. So if you have your routine with your writing and things like that, try to get those blue light glasses so that you can at least block that so that you can sleep better at night. And then obviously have more energy in the morning when you're, and so you can get back into your writing, but it just helps you overall, and it'll help decrease the eye strain as well. Also, like if you have vision issues, I enlarge the font, like zoom, zoom in. Don't feel like you have to keep it in, 0.10 font. It's okay if you, expand the frame. It's very simple, but we all do it. It's like, why am I staring at this computer so closely? And it's like, I could just, increase the zoom by maybe 25% and I can just like relax. It's okay.
It's funny. I did that just last night on my Kindle for the first time. And I confess there was a little bit of me that was quite sad to do it because I thought, oh, this is another part of aging. Because I used to laugh at my aunts and uncles for doing it. And now I'm doing it.
Yeah. But there's no shame in it. Honestly, it, really, it helps decrease the eye strain. As a writer, now our society is like almost 100% on computers now because of COVID, right? So we spend a lot of time on our devices. Make it easier on yourself, make it easier on your eyes. If you don't have to strain to see the smaller font, don't.
Yes, I know. So simple. But so effective. I like it. Okay. Well, that's great. So 2 good suggestions there. I'd never heard of the blue light glasses, so I'm going to be looking up those myself. And then, just enlarge the font. I like that.
Yeah.
A number of people said that they struggle with tendinitis in their hands. Is there anything that they can do to help reduce, I think, the swelling and the sort of pain that comes with that?
Yeah. So most often tendinitis is because of repetitive things. And oftentimes it's, mostly with like carpal tunnel and, being on the computer. So again, moving, stretching. I always kind of do like that prayer stretch with hands kind of together and letting the wrist come down. That's really helpful for stretching the carpal tunnel, but also having some support for your wrists on your computer. Sometimes those little cushions that can kind of keep you in kind of that neutral wrist position is kind of where you want to be. You don't want your wrist to be kind of cocked up too high or down because that's going to put pressure on those joints and cause some increased issues. Because really, most of the muscles that control the hand are in the forearm. So there are a lot of tendons that are coming through that wrist area. And so if you're putting extra tension by kind of having your wrist cocked up because you don't have your wrist supported on something, then you got to think about like, it's almost like ropes kind of, rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. Well, eventually they're going to get mad and be like, we've had enough of this. We're going to swell and be painful. So it's just about putting them in optimal, that neutral posture, that neutral position where they're supported so that you can work and not put extra strain on them.
Okay, cool. I've seen people with these kind of support gloves almost, or wrist bandages. Are they of, if you've already struggling a bit, are they of any use, or do you want to let your wrists keep moving more? Do they help or a hindrance, do you think?
So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with braces in general, right? So braces are good for acute injuries, to immobilize things so that the tissues can calm down, so they can rest, you decrease strain. That's fine. Prolonged use of them, I kind of take issue with sometimes because our bodies when it comes to stabilization and movement, our bodies are very efficient. So if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And so the body's like, oh, I don't have to work to stabilize that. Great. And, and then you feel like, when you take it off, you feel extra weak because your muscles haven't been having, to support itself. So they're fine for short-term things, and as far as like carpal tunnel braces and things like that, if you know you're going to be doing a lot of typing and you already have some wrist issues, it's not a bad idea to put it on during that activity so you provide yourself a little bit of support. And so you don't further irritate the tissues. But if you don't currently have that issue, I wouldn't necessarily say wear a brace just in case. I would say get some, a cushion to support your wrist so that you're in better position so you don't eventually have it. But I don't think you should just get a brace just to have it if you don't have that condition already.
Okay, good advice there. Somebody was also asking about these lumbar pillows that you can get that you can put on your chair, and was wondering whether or not they are actually useful, or is it more of a marketing kind of gimmick?
Yeah. So the answer is it depends, right? So sometimes lumbar rolls are really nice, a nice little support if you're having some back issues. They can be nice to kind of help a little bit, but what I've found to be a little bit more supportive and cheaper is to just take a towel and fold it a couple of times. So it might be maybe a couple inches thick, and you put it, you sit on it, but you sit on it towards the back part of your bottom. So you kind of just barely put your hips on it.
Okay.
What that does is it actually helps tilt your pelvis forward in what we would call a little bit of lumbar lordosis. So it kind of increases the arch in your back, which that lumbar roll kind of helps with, but this does it from your seat aspect. And by rotating your hips forward a little bit, it actually supports you in a way that you can sit up straighter without having to work really hard. And it actually feels pretty good if you do it right. Mm-hmm. And it's not, you probably use maybe half the towel or even a quarter of the towel underneath your bottom. And it really does help a ton without having to get a lumbar roll. Okay. And it works even if you're sitting on the floor or you're sitting in a chair that doesn't have a back, or you're sitting closer to the edge of a chair. It can work in all those areas.
It sounds like it's the same position you would use if, say, you were doing a yoga class and you're using like the mat supports for your sitting in yoga. Right. Okay.
Yes.
Now that sounds like the sort of thing that's good to do regardless of whether you have back pain or not, just generally good for your back's natural position.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I need to do that.
I think too, like with posture, it's helpful. I do it myself, especially sitting on the floor. That helps too. But like even with posture, I think a lot of times the mindset is to like try to like force your posture up straight and like shoulders back, and that's really it's hard to maintain because most of us don't sit that way most of the time, right? But a better way to think about sitting up straight is elongating. So think about like if you were like a marionette doll and there was a string attached to the top of your head and someone was pulling you straight up. And so you're basically elongating your spine. You're not necessarily forcing your shoulders back. You're actually straightening up through your spine, going straight up toward the sky. And what you'll find is you'll be a lot more upright. Your core and your back muscles will engage the way they're supposed to and the way they're designed to. And it doesn't take as much work as trying to force your shoulders back and all that other stuff. It's so much easier to just elongate your spine and kind of raise your head like from your shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I certainly, that's exactly what you described. I'm always trying to push my shoulders back, trying to ramrod straight my spine, thinking that's me sitting up straight. But I like the idea of just lifting up from the crown of the head. That feels a more gentle way of doing it. Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, I was thinking about habits. Habits are so important, and I struggle with many habits, including staying active, not necessarily doing sport, but just kind of staying active. If there are others like me who don't get the kick out of movement that some other people do, have you any suggestions about how we can begin to incorporate any of these exercises, or any other exercise actually, into our lives? Because one thing I find is when I've got the headache, I'm so on it. I do the stretches, and every time I say to myself, I've got to make this part of my weekly routine. And then as soon as the pain goes, I forget all about it. And I don't think I'm alone there. I wonder if you've got something I've not thought about to help make that more of a habit.
Yeah. Oh man, we're all this way. So don't feel bad. Everybody's bipolar. Everybody. We only take our medicine until we feel good, and then we forget that it's the medicine that helps us feel good, right? It's like we got to do our exercises. That's what helps us feel good. We're all the same. One of the things that as far as like movement in general, I always encourage my patients and my clients to do the things you enjoy. Like, what do you enjoy doing, right? Some people hate going to the gym. That's okay. You know, it doesn't have to look like what the media or what other people say it's supposed to look like. Movement for you might be working in your garden. It might be walking your dog. It might be, doing some yoga. It might be, there a ton of things. For me, it's roller skating. I absolutely love to roller skate. So it's one of those things where, I'm not a runner. And that's just not the way my body's built. It just hates it. My knees are like, why are we doing this? But I love roller skating. My husband hates roller skating, but he loves doing, riding a bike. So it's whatever you enjoy, do it. Mm-hmm. One of the recommendations for exercise is like to get 150 minutes worth of exercise for a week, right? In a week. And that sounds really daunting for most people because they're like, oh my gosh, now I got to go to the gym, or I got to work out for hours or whatever. But what studies have shown is even in breaking, they will say, well, 30 minutes a day, right? But even if you broke that into smaller portions, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, that still adds up. It still counts. Mm-hmm. So, even if you're with your exercises that you need to do for your neck and things like that, all that counts. So don't despise the little things. If it's like, oh man, I'm just going to like walk back and forth to the mailbox and then back for like 5 minutes. And then in an hour, I'm going to do it again. Like that all adds up.
Okay.
As far as like creating habits, it really, it can be tough, and it can be like, discouraging because we fall off. Right. But the thing is, as we're creating habits, we have to understand how the brain and how the mind works. We're used to doing a certain thing. And it's kind of like treading a path in a forest. Right. And so that path is well worn, and it's, you can see it when you walk in the forest. You can see that well worn path. When we want to start a new habit, we have to wear a brand new path in that forest, which means sometimes if we're not consistent, or if we, let's say life happens and we get back on that old path, mm-hmm. we can't get down on ourselves. It's not like that path is a bad path. It's just a more worn path than the new path. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in order to create that new habit, it just has to be more worn than the old path. And so it's one of those things where don't get discouraged if you fall off. Okay. I always tell my clients, have a plan B. Have a plan B. I'm gonna do my neck exercises every morning when I get up. So for the first week, you're very consistent and you're doing it. But let's say life happens, your kid gets sick, stuff happens, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what's my plan B when life gets crazy?
Okay.
I may not be able to have time to go for that 30-minute walk. I may only have time to do my neck exercises or a 5-minute yoga sequence. But that's okay because that's my plan B. And when life settles down, I go back to my plan A, which means now there's no guilt involved.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not beating myself up because we don't, we give up because we anticipate the punishment that we give ourselves.
Yes. Yes. A lot of guilt. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot of guilt. So we have plan B, right? So we say, okay, I know I need to do these exercises for my neck so I feel better. So then you brainstorm it. What's the optimal time that would work best for you to get them done? Once you figure that out, then you just implement that. Mm-hmm. If something happens, you say, okay, well, if something happens to disrupt that time, when's the next best time for me to do it? So that's my plan B.
Okay. I like that because then it's taking away the idea that you're falling off the wagon, so to speak.
Yes.
You're always on it. You're just changing your seat.
Exactly. Because as we all know, life can change dramatically in a moment, right? I mean, we've experienced 2020 has been crazy. Yes. I mean, I don't even know. It's just been like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So we have to again, give ourselves grace and understand that yes, life happens. And how are we going to respond to that so that we're not totally derailed? We don't have to fall off the wagon, just like with our eating. If you're on a specific diet plan and you're like, okay, I'm not going to have, a whole lot of carbs. I'm just going to do a lot of fruits and vegetables, healthy proteins, healthy fats. Okay, cool. And then, then you have a really crazy craving for, some chocolate chip cookies and you have some chocolate chip cookies. Is your diet completely over? No, it's not. You had chocolate chip cookies. Okay. Tomorrow, have more fruits and vegetables, drink more water. It's not the end of the world. We have to give ourselves grace and understand that, we should strive for progression, not perfection.
Mm-hmm. Very true. That's lovely. Progression, not perfection. I'm just conscious of time, but I've got a couple more questions, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you were writing your book as well. So I wonder, is there anything else, any other kind of ailments or sore points that maybe you experienced when you were writing or that other people have come to you with, but I haven't thought to ask today?
Yeah. So I think for me, when I was writing, I think the thing that I ran into the most was just having a great place to write in. We were doing a lot of moving and things like that. So it was like, okay, well, now I'm writing on the couch and I'm kind of like all curled up over here. And then I'm over here, writing at the kitchen table, and then I'm writing in my bed. And so I think just having a consistent writing area. Mm-hmm. So I could make it a lot more comfortable for myself. Mm-hmm. Cause I too had, shoulder pain and back pain from, hunching over. And I think for me, being able to, I did a lot of yoga really, in between. So I would just do like a few yoga poses, to kind of take a break. And then I would go back to my writing, which was great because, the story I share in my book is my grief journey after losing my son. And so it's pretty heavy. Yes. And so being able to kind of do that restorative yoga and being able to kind of relax my mind and then go back into it was very helpful for me.
So did you just do a few select poses? You don't need to do a full routine, a full flow. You can just choose a few poses, do those, and then get back. Right. Okay.
Absolutely. Uh-huh. Yeah. And I think that was helpful for me too, because, a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, you get in the flow, and you don't necessarily want to like, okay, now I'm going to go do yoga for 30 minutes to an hour. It's like, no, I just need to stretch and move a little bit, and I need to get some more oxygen in my body, and then I can get back to it.
Love that. I love that. Well, Alexia, where can listeners find out more about you and the work that you do?
Yes. So they can find me. My website is alexiaharrigan.com. And I'm on Instagram at Dr. Lexi Harrigan. And I'm on Facebook as well as Alexia Harrigan.
Cool. Well, I'll link to all of those in the show notes. And that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to speak to you.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Okay, how was that for you? I hope you found that as useful as I did. I loved Alexia's practical suggestions on how we can alleviate all those aches and pains in our body, and the way she's encouraged us just to be gentle with ourselves, find an activity or a way of being active that suits us and our lifestyle. So if you're like me and you do not love the gym, then I love the fact she's saying, okay, don't do that. Find another way of incorporating activity in your life, whether it be to walk to the post box and back, or whether it just be to do a few stretches and a few yoga poses, if that's what you're into. It's about fitting activity and movement into your life, no matter what you do in your day-to-day, so that you stay fit, you stay healthy, that you can continue with your writing career and not be completely disabled by it. I know that I struggle a lot, and I'm constantly trying to find ways of keeping myself active. I know of other writers who have even undergone surgical procedures because the pain has got too much, and then they've had to find ways of making sure they keep themselves moving and keep the benefit of that surgical procedure. So I hope that's been useful. Let me know how you get on. Please do put in the comments what you do to keep fit and healthy and active, and any tips that you want to share with other listeners. Right, that's what I've got for you today. I hope it was good, and I'll see you again next time.